Does doing the right thing come at the cost of business performance? Can ethics and profit coexist? Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast. Join host Kaumadi Gowda for candid conversations with industry luminaries as we navigate the maze of decision-making in today's global workplace. Each episode offers a window into the minds of leaders achieving remarkable outcomes while balancing diverse priorities and stakeholders. Tune in for thought-provoking insights and actionable strategies on leading with ethics every day. Because in the pursuit of excellence, integrity matters.
Our guest today is Dr. Saman Sarbazvatan. Saman works at the intersection of technology, education, and business, focused on digital and responsible innovation and transformation. He's the COO and Vice Dean of Ecole de Ponts Business School of Ecole de Ponts Paris Tech, ENPC, the founding director of the Paris Tech Center for Good, and a senior advisor and professor of technology, circular economy, innovation, and competitiveness. Saman is an Industry 5.0 thought leader and the chair of Harvard European Chapter of Microeconomics of Competitiveness Network. Saman helps entrepreneurs, investors, executives, and decision makers at the forefront of the digital and responsible transition towards Industry 5.0 and has a profound passion for leveraging tech for good. Hi, Saman. A very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for being patient through the technical snags. I'm so delighted to finally have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to this. Thank you.
Saman, you've had such an interesting career since 2000 in technology, in academia, and business. How do you interconnect these domains, and what drives you through all of this?
Thinking about technology and academia and business together might become not very clear in finding organically the way through, but in fact, they're very much interrelated. So I tell you how, for me, this red thread was formed across, and the story might also resonate with some who are doing two of them, but are looking forward to the third pillar to create their own triangle. So I started in technology, and I've been working hands-on tech until even 2012, 13. I was still doing some work directly in tech, but meanwhile, from the beginning, I was also teaching, even if I was very young when I finished my studies, the primary and the secondary, and then, because we were developing these solutions, and it was like a very interesting momentum in digital transformation in 2000, as you remember. So that's why I had to do it, because we had to train the leaders and investors and innovators on how to use the tools that were very basic as compared to today, of course. So that's how my sort of the door to academia was opened from the beginning, and then over time, of course, as the work evolved, my engagement also evolved, and it was more of corporate training, executive education programs, and then as MBAs and other studies also integrated technology much more than before. So naturally, since I was riding, the tip of a very nice wave of technological transformation, that I was lucky, of course. But that's how this door was remained open. But then after like about 10 years in tech, pure tech, of course, you get to the point that, okay, you would like to get engaged with more organizational and leadership aspects beyond the technology as a tool, as an enabler, but rather in terms of how decisions are made organizationally and everything else. So that's how I started shifting, and I took the path of MBA in 2010, and in 2017 the path of executive doctorate in business administration at Ecole des Ponts. So then I finished that, and after, as a part of my postdoc work, I've been working on this, interconnecting these domains together and leveraging technology for driving the responsible transition. So technically the digitally empowered responsible economy, as I call it. Because as you're working in technology, of course, you're always using all the tools that you're very much informed about the reality of things, whether it be metrics and measures for sustainability or socioeconomic implications of digital transformation, up to governance and leadership aspects, which are very, very broad. So that's why the way that I carved my way through was through the convergence of digital transformation with the responsible transition, which includes sustainability, circular economy, ESG, SDGs, and all the elements of responsible transition.
I understand, I've been observing you for a few years. I've always wondered, it's just so much that you have a grasp of, and you're bringing together so many different domains. Correct me if I didn't understand what you said, but it sounds to me like at heart you're a technologist first. You pursued in-depth technology that evolved into also teaching, and then it also evolved into understanding as a technologist and an academic, and also someone who's teaching the next generation of leaders the importance of business management and leadership too. And that's the flow of it. Did I get that right?
True. Technology was, yes, the first step, of course. Yes, technology was the first step. And then this engagement with academia and with teaching, and over time, now, at some point I was looking back and I was thinking, how I ended up as the vice dean, in France, in one of the major brands. And, I was in technology, I was in industry. I was working a lot with consulting, with energy, with all sorts of, from sports to media to fashion and everything else. So I was working as, technology is transversal across sectors. So I was working with all these industries, and then I was like, how did I end up in academia? And that's how I realized, well, I'm actually really lucky, because what we do here, especially at this school, working with executives, that's very enriching for me personally, but also for the work that we do, with our community of alumni and participants, because that is how we make sense of things. We bring something more meaningful than just studying or getting a degree, or just investing in something just for financial growth. No, we really look beyond that, because we have that common interest, and that's the value that gathers us all around what we do collectively.
One of the things I absolutely admired and loved about some of the sessions I've attended that you've led, Saman, is the fact that you care so deeply about a more sustainable and ethical future. And in that context, I wanted to ask you, given all the really important work you're leading, how would you describe ethics and integrity in your context of the digitally empowered, responsible transformation?
Sure. So there are several ways to look at it. The evolution of ethics and integrity. We are moving from a backward-looking sort of evaluation of consequences into a form of embedded, where we embed ethics and integrity in foresight, in futures thinking, in the work that the whole digitally empowered responsible transition is about, the desirable emerging futures, the futures that we would like to have. So how do we embed ethics and integrity into the foresight models that we use, into this futures thinking and the anticipatory governance systems that we have? This, from retrospective to foresight-driven sort of ethics, is one very important pillar that I can share. The other could be the move from rule-based compliance to value-aligned design, in which the move from as seen as external rules or legal requirements to be followed. This move from that side to the internalized sort of purpose-driven design that we have for our businesses and economies. Again, the angle is the desirable emerging futures.
Yeah.
Where organizations align the operations and supply chains and technologies and business models all around, an embedded sort of ethics and integrity. We can also think about from a binary trade between, right and wrong to navigating like tensions and paradoxes and trade-offs, because now the economies and markets that we engage with today increasingly are interconnected and over complex. So now this move is also very interesting to not only to watch and follow, but also to see how we can lead that, and what are the implications of this shift in our operational and also in our decision-making spheres, individually and institutionally.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You've laid it out so clearly that the three potential streams of thought we can look at as we're examining ethics and integrity in business as it relates to future and technology, talking about how it's usually often backwards facing, only connecting the dots in retrospect, but it can also be future forward thinking, making a desirable technology. Then you're talking about binary versus embracing the fact that there are many different types of priorities and navigating trade-offs. Those are very interesting streams of thought. Are you noticing any patterns, someone, as you're working with corporates and companies tackling the very cutting edge of technology? Are you noticing one particular stream more relevant to companies over the others as they're thinking about responsible technology?
Yes, so in different stages, they realize the impact of these three sort of movements. Some of them, those who are embedding, or maybe we start with the first one, like the retrospective one to foresight-driven,
Yeah.
and embedding ethics and integrity into foresight.
Yeah.
Those are, let's say, industry leaders and also purpose-driven innovators that understand the implications of this digitally empowered economy that must be responsible, because digital transformation is not going to slow down, and every day we see more innovative ways of integrating technology in our personal, professional lives. So digital transformation is not going anywhere, and for a fact we know that the responsible transition is gaining urgency every day as well, from any angle that you take through SDGs or ESG or circular economy, creation of shared value, and of course the main pillars of Industry 5.0, sustainability, human centricity, and resilience. So because these forces are coming together, those who are leading markets and industries and those innovators who are shaping the emerging futures of markets and societies, they work with it very directly. Those who are more receiving the consequences of this shift from rule-based compliance to value-aligned design, those are companies who integrate ethics and integrity in the operational and leadership structures of not only their own organizations, but also they provide the tools for others as well to do so. So it's very interesting to see these market trends, how these new solutions are coming up to help others to not only understand this value-aligned design, but also help them achieve it. And the one that about like from binary ethics to the complex trade-offs,
Right.
this is mostly, I think, well perceived and understood by all those who are engaging with the digital economy, either directly or they are impacted by the shifts in the digital economy, and also they interact with socioeconomic, socio-environmental dimension of their industry,
Right.
which means that they have a more sort of proactive engagement with their stakeholders, either through investors and policymakers or through users and partners and clients. But I think this is how we see this the shift of the value system that is driving the digitally empowered responsible transition on industry and business leaders.
And the third one?
Yeah, the binary ethics, right, to the complex trade-offs. That was like the last point was like everyone who is working directly or indirectly with the digital economy and has an active involvement, engagement with their stakeholders, they see this vividly. They cannot ignore it. So this the interesting thing is that as this general awareness is increasing among leaders and also among even the new generation, of course, that is how we define like the new risk and readiness matrix that we talk about at ReTech. It's a model I developed a couple of years back. This is how like everything, like all the metrics and measures and indicators of success are being redefined, and that's how leaders would need to understand the implications of them.
As a researcher who's fascinated by how we can create environments inside organizations that support and encourage ethical decision making, I'm fascinated by your work in particular because the work you're doing around responsible innovation and the fact that digital transformation is inevitable. How does that play out in terms of the enormous pressure the innovators and the market leaders inevitably face because there is such an appetite for solutions that are more advanced and evolve more rapidly? It seems to me there is such a race to evolve and provide the next generation of solutions. The pressure these innovators and you call them market leaders, and when they are facing such enormous pressure from their stakeholders, I'm sure it's quite hard to resist that pull to race towards providing exciting new developments and resist that in support of responsibility and ethical innovation and saying, yes, we could do that, but is that the right thing to do? Because they are the innovators, they certainly can set the stage. Do you see that tension? I'm sure you do. And what's your observation with big tech, and how do you work with them to create that vision you have for a responsible future and ethical future in technology?
Yes, absolutely. The pressure is there, and that's one of the drivers of this transition to the responsible economy. So the driver for the digital transformation is, of course, competitiveness. You can, like, there are many drivers for digital transformation, like driving innovation, remaining competitiveness, you know. But for the responsible transition, yes, the pressure is coming from stakeholders, from policy and regulatory bodies, from investors, from consumers, from partners. You know, if you take the example of the EU, within the EU, the regulatory frameworks and the policy initiatives and strategies are designed in a way that over time, you know, working with them, you know, following the guidelines and so contributing to them, you know, you see how they are building it up from the ground, and now the scale is beyond the EU. The impact of the EU regulations, as you know, is far beyond, and technically it's for anyone who wants to have any economical exchanges with the EU would need to abide by, for example, the circular economy directives and digital product passport and all those transparency requirements for businesses. And that is how driving. So these pressures are very productive, and of course, they sort of push our markets and industries towards a more responsible sort of way of leveraging the capital and their assets. So what happens is that now increasingly we are collaborating with international organizations from businesses to government bodies. With the Middle East, we are very active at ReTech Center. With Asia, we are very active. And of course, within the EU, we have a very good track record in terms of the participation and contributions to the EU projects in various forms, and coming up more. So I think for me, it's like you need to embrace this pressure that comes. Of course, it's not easy. I mean, especially for larger organizations, to be honest, like this is like a very strong competitive advantage for startups because you work on the cultural dimensions and of course a lot around change management and transformation. It's difficult for our friends in corporate. It's very difficult. But then the good news is that these startups are now plugging in and supporting. So the whole dynamic that is created around this move towards the digitally empowered responsible economy is making it very interesting to watch. Of course, it's like watching a dance floor. You get bored if you don't dance. So those who don't want to engage with the change, they won't enjoy it as much as those who are engaging with the change and transformation, either receiving or providing services, and by any mean that they can, they do something. So that's what I can share.
I love that metaphor. And you mentioned rule-based compliance is one of the ways in which it might be, the tension between rule-based compliance versus value-based innovation. You've also talked just now about the work you're doing in the Middle East and Asia. Where I come from the global south, Saman, one of the things is sometimes I notice the legislation and the infrastructure of the state is not adequate and updated enough to keep up with the rapid pace of innovation. And in many countries in the global south, they're therefore delegating, because they're unable to keep up, the governance as well to big tech sometimes. Companies that are able to define the limits, the constraints, and how it should progress, the pace at which it should progress, what sorts of policies make sense. Sometimes the governance is delegated in that manner in some of these economies. I'm sure you observe that. Do you have any perspective or take you want to share on those kinds of environments where digital transformation is inevitable and it's going to be everywhere? Some states perhaps are not there yet in terms of capability to partner well and to monitor, and they're delegating governance. Would you share some perspectives or advice on such environments?
Sure. So, I mean, if you contrast like this model of delegating governance versus too much of centralization, as we see in advanced economies, which mostly are not yet at the capacity that they could be. The common element in both models that is contributing to this inefficiency, if you like, is the gap of skills. Is the gap of skills that touches all domains, like gap of skills in leadership and governance by itself, gap of skills. Why does it matter? Because now moving forward, it's like the digitally empowered responsible transition requires our leadership and governance models to reflect both the digital transformation what can be done with it, what are their impacts, how would it change the way we do things, and also the responsible transition, like how would, for example, depending on the region, but generally speaking, like circular economy and SDGs and ESG, how are these sort of pushes and pulls
Yeah.
through different stakeholders are also requiring us to rethink the way we do things. So the skills, the gap of skills in leadership and governance, the gap of skills in technology, in operational aspects of the responsible transition, like sustainable practices, regenerative practices,
That's right.
like all industries. I mean, from fashion, agriculture, energy, manufacturing, of course, all of them are impacted, all of them. So for me, both models. So the delegation would, of course, be much better if it would become like a sort of an inclusive multi-stakeholder governance system, which means that with upskilling and reskilling of the public sector and the leading private sectors, we can achieve that in a way that it's a decentralized, intellectual, and responsible powerhouse that is driving the markets and industries forward rather than delegating for the sake of getting it done by someone else, but not me. I don't have the time, or I don't want to get involved, or whatever reason. So that's what I think would really help both models to really leverage the power of the distributed uh, capital of the distributed intellectual capital that we have in all countries.
Have you come across any examples where perhaps they come close to what you're describing in either model and they're doing it well?
Yes, well, there are good examples, and if you zoom in some industries or some countries, there are good models that you have different s- scopes of this multi-stakeholder governance.
Mm.
Uh, but in general, like if you want to look at from an index perspective, I think there's a good gap in research
Mm.
that can address that, but it requires a lot of work. So um, one of the contributions that we have is with the European Commission's Community of Practice of Industry 5.0, which ReTech Center is an official member of. And there, with other partners under the leadership of the EU Commission, we drive practical aspects of the transition to Industry 5.0, which is sustainability and technology together. Uh, so they represent a good role model for driving this. The EU Commission by itself is a great example. I mean, our school at Ecole de Ponts Business School, we are involved in more than a dozen of projects under circular economy and technology. We are involved with many more narrowed down technologies from AI and of course big data structures to LLMs and SLMs and digital twins and cybersecurity and blockchain. So uh, we see how well the orchestration is designed to drive this sort of systemic shift. So examples are there, but more than good examples, there are opportunities. So if you like, yes.
Well, that's incredible. I know you do extensive work. What's fascinating about your own this extensive breadth of experiences, you're doing this in Europe. You're also oftentimes working closely with leaders and organizations in Asia, in the Middle East. Have you, someone, had a personal experience where you had to navigate a difficult ethical dilemma? I'm curious about how such experiences have shaped your own approach moving forward, because you're so deeply involved in creating a sustainable, ethical future. Would you have an example you'd like to share?
Sure. So one, if you like, lesson that I learned over years of working uh, more heavily on technology, because today I still work on technology a lot, but on higher levels of strategic decision making and governance models with investors, with innovators. But when I was working on more hands-on sort of keyboard, as we say, uh, it was we knew the potentials of the market. We could see the potentials of the market because we were developing solutions, uh, and over time you start thinking about the socioeconomic and socio-environmental value of what is being sort of uh, delivered, sold, bought, and then you start questioning like how else could it be done? Like how could it, technology can be a great tool. So why not focusing more on like enabling aspects of it rather than just driving the financial gains? So that was a big dilemma that I had to, step up, and that's why I also did my doctorate on the topic to see, okay, digital transformation, but plus the responsible pillars. So for me, that was how I managed it. Is like, okay, I have to sort of step up, and if I believe that something can be done, and if I know how to do it, I need to share it, and academia is a great platform to share because once you finish your doctoral degree and you do your research on a topic and then you share your findings and then you start engaging with many executives and decision makers from across industries. I think that's where we get the best benefit.
But that was fascinating to me. What I was
Sure.
curious to know was, did you face any hurdles, someone? So you found that this too is possible. I believe passionately in it, and you pursued your doctoral research in it, and then you decided to share what you have learned with others as well because you passionately believe this was possible, and let's address it. And as you did this, did you face any hurdles in making your vision come true? That it's not just the economic drivers around profitability, but we could think about a sustainable future too.
Yes, naturally. I mean, so exactly in line with what you just asked, like the type of challenges and hurdles that I observed and worked with. So I brought them together and did a bit of research as well, again, with expert practitioners and with decision makers. So I created a risk and readiness matrix, uh, which is which reflects the all the elements of success and failure of organizations. So it involves, of course, leadership and governance is at the top center of it because like the digitally empowered responsible governance has different metrics, measures, and indicators that we need to know about, then can adhere to, conform, and then lead and drive them. So there's a lot that that comes as challenges that are not very easy to manage because those are not simple steps, but it takes some time. But we see with with companies that we work with governments that we work with, we see how when we put together the solutions that we have developed or the frameworks and the expertise that we bring on board with the fellows of ReTech Center and the whole executive doctoral community of our EDBA program at Ecole de Ponts Business School.
Someone as an Industry 5.0 thought leader, what are your observations on the real life ethical dilemmas most relevant today? And what is your advice to professionals grappling with such situations?
Well, thank you. Well, moving to the digitally empowered responsible economy, we can imagine like the ethical dilemmas that we would have in terms of integrating these technologies that we talked about from, of course, AI on the top of the list of the trendy sort of headlines, but then we have like blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. We have quantum, of course. Then we have like biocomputers. We have many of these different technologies that each will have very deep dilemmas and challenges when it comes to ethics in terms of integrating them into our operational and also economic models. But even after that is like when these technologies combine together and, when you have AI and blockchain, collaborating together, for example, where blockchain can provide trust on the origin of data or, an AI, of course, would help on crunching the data that comes in and, helps us with decision making and beyond, and of course with agentic AI, technically do things for us. So there's a lot to consider, but if I want to sort of maybe prioritize them, I would say like, well, lack of ethical frameworks is something that is seen on the surface, but in reality, it's like a deficit in anticipatory capacity building. It's like ecosystem awareness and the alignment between operations and the values and the systems that we are trying to scale. So maybe, for the sake of, putting them in points, like one would be AI and autonomy versus human agency. Of course, the values that we talk about, creativity, for example, human dignity, rights, accountability. And of course, because AI is increasingly taking over decision making, there's this tension for optimizing for efficiency or better valuing and preserving and valuing more human dignity, rights, accountability, which is also at the core of Industry 5.2 as human-centric. As the term, when it comes, it refers to human-centric design, human-inclusive design, and not necessarily to put humans at the center and design everything for humans, but to make sure that humans are at the center of decision making, but enhance the technology. So, for this, if we don't have, decisions algorithms with redress mechanisms, with some levers, of course, it's a big challenge. The second one would be digital ownership versus data exploitation. When it comes, for example, and as we talked about tokenized ecosystems, in immersive and tokenized ecosystems where we have, for example, extended reality technologies with blockchain integration and other DLTs, the line between value creation and value extraction is very thin because of the wide variety of possibilities that we can innovate in operational, economic, and business model. So ethical concerns can arise around surveillance capitalism, consent mechanisms in Web3, and when we have like tokenized economies, data commodification, especially when digital identities are fragmented across platforms as well.
Yeah.
So this would be number two. And so number three is, of course, like short-term innovation versus long-term responsible innovation.
Yeah.
Since startups and corporates are often pressed and to scale fast without thoroughly considering the unintended consequences of short-sighted sort of innovation or short-term innovation, such as exclusion, of course, resource depletion, ecological degradation, and of course a lot on human side of things when it comes to human rights, women's rights, at various degrees and depth, of course. So all these create creates paradox between innovation, the speed, and the responsibility. So I think that would be the number three of the challenges that are most urgent for professionals to think about. And I think you asked also about some sort of advice, if you like.
Yeah.
It's about a shift from ethical decision making to ethical foresight. So which means that instead of focusing on the decision making itself, we don't wait for ethical crises to arise, build mechanisms for anticipating the dilemmas and challenges before they materialize. That's like foresight driven innovation, which requires, of course, interdisciplinary thinking, sort of stakeholder engagement, multi-stakeholder engagement, scenario-based reflection, early in the life cycle of the innovation. So that's how we can shift from focusing on decision making itself to having an ethical foresight that would bring us the capacity to address the ethical dilemmas when they arise. And then linked to that is embedding integrity as a systemic capability, operationalized, through traceable governance, transparent communication, clear accountability structures. Of course, we have technologies like blockchain and responsible AI that are the tools to make these things happen. So this is something that we can really take as an advice, if you like embedding integrity as a systemic capability. And the last one would be now that we talked about capabilities and also foresight, but this doesn't happen unless we can manage to see and redefine success through responsible value creation. This means moving beyond the KPIs that are profit driven, built on economic modeling of sort of not sustainable or eroding sort of economic models, but instead embracing regenerative, inclusive, circular models of value creation. Every professionals, decision makers, executives, innovators, investors, policymakers, we all must ask whose future is being designed, who benefits, who bears the cost, and who's designing those futures. Of course, every decision as a part of an ecosystem has a very deep impact, as we know. But of course, here is to understand the sort of that ecosystemic impact of decisions. So I think that's when we can, sort of redefine success through responsible value creation.
And everything you say is just a mini TED talk in of itself, because such powerful concepts that are at the same time so clear. You're talking about shifting from ethical decision making to ethical foresight. You shared very clear ways in which executives can embed this, how to create ethical foresight within themselves, interdisciplinary thinking, scenario-based innovation. The second point you made was about embedding integrity as a systemic capability. I'm very intrigued by it. The last 2 points you made, embedding integrity as systemic capability and responsible value creation that's inclusive and circular. Traditionally, there has been resistance to move from shareholder, short-term profit incentivization to more circular, inclusive thinking and stakeholder prioritization. How are you persuading the corporate partners you advise to do these two things, embedding integrity as a systemic capability and responsible value creation? Do you encounter resistance? And if you do, how do you help them overcome that in their mind?
Sure. So the one is that, of course, the target audience with whom I would have these type of conversations are those who, first of all, they know what they don't know, and they understand the implications of ignoring the unfolding frontiers of businesses, markets, and societies at the intersection of the digital transformation and the responsible transformation. So honestly, I have been in conversations, very good friends of mine, fellows. They're very kind. They try to, of course, develop, bring their sort of best partners on board. But sometimes, as you said, the perspectives are not aligned. So I have had those conversations, and the person, a very responsible person, respectable person, and we had very interesting conversation. But he said, like, how do you convince me to do this? I said, well, I don't. I don't need to convince you, because at this stage we're talking about competitiveness for those who are the avant-premier, those who understand, those who realize and value foresight, which is digitally empowered and responsible. So, with that type of mindset, I don't need to convince them personally, because they will need to catch up soon, because as they see the trends in market shift. But of course, if we want to argue, okay, fine, but let's now work, let's have a deeper conversation. How would embedding integrity as a systemic capability help yourself as an innovator or investor or executive? Well, for that, the answer is actually is very linked to the point that we talked about, the first one. This is number 2 and 3 that we mentioned, but it's linked also to the first one, because talking about resilience, of course, it's a strong keyword that has been used increasingly since a decade now. But of course, it's one of the pillars of Industry 5.0. So focusing on resilience and looking at this question from the perspective of resilience is that if we do not embed integrity as a systemic capability, it means that we are reactive, responding reactively, and decide on decision making. Like, the focus would be on decision making. That's the first point that we said, like to shift from ethical decision making to ethical foresight.
Yeah.
Whereas if we have embedded them, if we have embedded integrity, because we have had ethical foresight, then the systemic capability is much more resilient and also much more competitive, because now we have foreseen and sort of anticipated, if you like, the potential challenges that could arise at the intersection of the digital and responsible economy at given sectors. Of course, we're talking about, if you're an executive in the manufacturing sector that are listening to this conversation, for you would be, okay, I have to start thinking about the integration of these type of technology, and when they meet the responsible transition, in what levels my industry, my company, my portfolio of investment, my product, my any asset that I have in that industry or linked to that industry, even if it's your adjacent industry, and if it's of course an ecosystemic thinking level, these are part of your stakeholders. If you're sitting at an industry that the next door industry is being disrupted, it's technically your call. So this is how it will be justified as a lever for competitiveness. In short, I mean, all this. In short, maybe I should have started with this, but it just came up. So in short, yes, it's a lever for responsible competitive, or just competitive. For the second one, the third one redefining success through responsible value creation also is linked to competitiveness, because if we don't redefine success, if we don't, so what, in these type of conversations and, the courses that I teach on Industry 5.0 and the projects that we work on and everything, it's like there's always this step that I have to explain. Okay, you say, this is what is happening in digital transformation, is meeting with the responsible transition, the support and pressure from the public and private stakeholders increasing over time, the awareness of markets, the requirements of all the stakeholders about transparency, about, how do you do what you do technically. So all of these are shifting the metrics and indicators and measures for success. And beyond success, I have created a risk and readiness matrix of the emerging futures that I present every year at our annual conferences of ReTech. And each time we take a couple of them to look into. Technically, the new measures, metrics, and indicators that we need to use to understand what is the unfolding frontier of success, impact, engagement, leadership, governance, competitiveness, foresight, design, business modeling, operational design, storytelling, marketing and branding. So it's like it's a matrix that looks into this and says, okay, now for you as an executive, investor, innovator, policymaker, decision maker, you now need to understand that what is coming up has the both sides. It's like success in terms of digital integration and leveraging all the prowess of technology, if you like, in boosting your performance and everything else, good. But if you don't have the responsible side covered as strongly, you're not competitive, because those who manage to do that, who manage to drive the responsible transition through digital transformation, those will be more competitive and more adapted to the upcoming trends of markets and what stakeholders would value, because the new value system of the digitally empowered responsible economy has different metrics, indicators, and measures for success and many other keywords that I told you, and they are in the matrix of risk and readiness. So that's how, a conversation, if I have, with a friend of mine who's an investor and is not convinced, and I really want to do him a favor, I say, listen, this is how you should look into it. Like for the first one, for the first one, of course, that shift is about resilience. For the second one, embedding integrity as systemic capability is about competitiveness. And redefining success through responsible value creation is just validity to being able to be valid still in terms of value proposition, economic modeling as a business in the upcoming markets. So those would be my 2 cents.
I love it, Saman, because I think that what you're doing is taking the arguments we've been hearing for a few years now and just putting it completely on its head. It's not about how do you convince anyone to do the right thing. You're pointing out that if any executive, any leader does not do the right thing now, embed integrity as systemic capability, refocus on responsible value creation, then you simply cannot keep up with innovation at the pace it's going. That's why a lot of leaders are now feeling like they're riding the tiger. They're not on top of innovation, and they quite feel like they're probably going to be replaced by systems. You can very easily change that equation entirely by focusing on the points you're pointing out. I think that's a very powerful non-argument. You're saying, I don't need to convince you. But people who are doing this are going to be the ones who are the leaders. They're the ones who are going to survive and thrive. I noticed, and I invite your comment on this, we don't have to get into it if you don't want to, that there's a new recent dialogue. It started in North America. Now I'm hearing this conversation in EU as well, where they'd like to monitor conversation, monitor digital content creation, governments. And earlier in this conversation, we had touched upon it, that you believe public-private partnerships are the way to go because governments sometimes are not equipped. Do you have a comment on this latest trend? Because in media, they're reporting both ways. On one hand, governments are trying to create a safer digital world. On the flip side, it's about digital privacy, and you mentioned this earlier too.
Yes. So I think like we have to, I think, step back and like we did in terms of questioning whether it's the right thing to do or not, or why do we have to do this? Trying to have take sides. Like, yes, we have to do this because if we don't do it, how do we manage? And the other side, yeah, what about humanity? What about this? So but we can look at what could lead to this. Is like if we zoom on something on a higher level, which is governance. Yes, we need digital governance. We need, of course, that's normal. But maybe we need to look deeper into governance itself, because yes, it needs to be governed. We need to be able to have traceability. And that's non-negotiable, because first of all, technically it's possible, so it will happen even if 99% of the world say we don't need it. That 1% who still want to do it, they can still do it. But the question is, how do we make this governance more responsible and also more connected to stakeholders? So sort of a multi-stakeholder governance model that we go into. And this is where, tokenized economic modeling comes into play. And that's, of course, the idea from day one with blockchain technology, was to enable those type of governance systems. So we have many of those successful governance systems, of course, in closed systems, in more controlled environments. At enterprise level, for example, they're very strong, very successful, ethical, responsible, and all that. But of course, when it comes to a broader sort of scope, it needs to be analyzed, understood, and also, understood in terms of the ecosystemic interdependencies of different elements that would be involved in the governance modeling and governance system. Those would need to be understood, studied, and driven collectively forward. I won't have the answer, unfortunately, now all by myself. I need collective intelligence for that and some studies. But yeah, that's a very valid point, and this is exactly one of the dilemmas, like which way to go, how to do it. But like here we look at, do we have to go this way at all? Like, do we have to go anywhere like with this system of governance? Or
I love the clarity with which you think of things, and it's usually a little different framing from the conventional framing of these topics. I think it's fascinating. You mentioned that every year at ReTech Center you pick 2 topics. What topics did you pick this year, 2025?
So in 2025 edition, we talked about space, fashion. Of course, at the intersection of these sort of keywords that I'm telling you, we had like stories, like we had social value creation using blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, with branding and storytelling of fashion products, with art we had, with space manufacturing we had, smart cities and cognitive cities, and the role of AI and immersive technologies and blockchain there. And we had the panel conversation with experts, interconnecting them, and also So we had we started with the responsible tech diplomacy, in which as providing the red thread. And you know who was the guest of honor for that? It was Ayumi, from our EDBA, who's the founder of Women in Tech, my good friend, who has joined our EDBA now for a couple of years, and now her topic of focus is on tech diplomacy. So at ReTech Center, we had ReTech diplomacy. In terms of it's the same thing, but it's like looking into things from the angle of the digitally empowered responsible economy. So yeah, those are the topics that we covered this year, and the question of governance always of course comes up. But then we need to look at things like in transition, which means that now it's happening. If you look into, for example, the financial system, now you see that more and more the traditional financial institutions are like racing to integrate blockchain technology and tokenized and different type of tokens, tokenized economies and tokenized business model. With of course challenges from public policy. But as you see, like this is the transition. It's the shift is in value systems, and the transition takes like steps. In governance also, we see like in smaller scales, in some countries are stronger, some industries are stronger. But of course, as you know, there are many ecosystems that are completely legal. For example, we have in the network for investors and innovators who are completely focused on tokenized economy, and they drive other industry innovations like in health tech, in space, in agriculture. But the economic modeling and the engine is on tokenized economy. So it's happening. And the question of governance is coming up. And it's a very interesting topic to focus on, to discuss, to prepare for, and to also to drive forward.
That's fantastic. We talked a lot about ReTech Center. How do you help advance your advice to professionals? These points are so powerful. Can you share more about the ReTech Center and how executives can engage with its various initiatives?
Sure, with pleasure. So at ReTech Center, I put like a structure of 4 labs, the RISE labs, research, innovation, skills, and engagement. And when I thought about it was because as I work with the public sector in terms of research and innovation, and the private sector, so I saw that the facility of addressing the challenges that we have from these 4 sort of gateways or perspectives is much more efficient and more engaging. Like when companies come, and request a meeting, for example, with ReTech Center, they go through a process to tell us, what they think about the shared value that we can create together and everything else. But the question is, okay, so now there are 4 sort of doors that you can enter from in terms of, collaborating as individuals or institutions. It's like on research lab, everything is about, it's like the ReTech publication. It's about public and private research, industry research, action research, market research, all type of research, books, of course, more executive leadership material, also academic material, policy papers, type of the EU projects we work on. So that would be like the research lab. Then we have the innovation lab, which is about facilitating where innovation, technology, and the responsible transition can meet resources and funds and the ecosystemic support. In other words, we help at ReTech Center, we help incubators and accelerators in order to help them push up the standards, increase their efficiency and their impact as well, and the return on the funds that they engage return on investment, you can call it, but it's broader than that. So we help them by various means. We have investors lounges for individuals and institutions separately. They can meet as well, of course. So we facilitate these type of interactions and engagements and advancements. And we also organize competitions and hackathons and these type of innovation sort of workshops. Then we have the skills lab, which is so the innovation lab was ReTech Venture Builder Studio. The research lab was ReTech Publication. The skills lab is ReTech Academy. It's everything about upskilling and reskilling. And it's about capacity building. It's about competencies. So there we have like certificate programs, degree programs, specialized programs, specialized executive MBA, specialized executive DBA, the doctorate in business administration, and of course, customizable specialization certification tracks for individuals and institutions. So then we have the engagement lab, which is ReTech Advisory Club. That's where we implement. That's like the implementation and the engagement of the public and private and the industry and academia, that's where we put together everything else that, we are developing or the partners bring on board, and we implement the project. So the reason to have the 4 labs, of course, because all these, they create a flywheel effect, and they accelerate research, they accelerate innovation, they accelerate skills and engagement implementation, but they also nurture each other, and it's the only way that I could find to interconnect the sort of the topics and disciplines that I was working on, which are now represented as the ReTech Specialization Matrix, which are technically the topics. The next question someone would listen to this would be, okay, research, innovation, skills, engagement. On what? Very good. So the answer is the ReTech Specialization Matrix, which is a matrix that has more than 35 specializations in terms of topics, such as AI and robotics, space, fashion, energy, agriculture, so these are like industry vectors, and then we have competencies and skills, like leadership and governance, competitiveness, foresight, and many more. So what happens is that someone would say, okay, I'm interested in doing research at the intersection of leadership and governance with AI and robotics, exactly like, what, one of the main pillars of this conversation. So that person can do a research project with us, publication of paper, books, or, the public projects with the European Commission that we work on. So, or a company, could say, okay, I'm interested in this intersection, can you help us with this type of research that we want to do together? So that will be research. On the same, let's say, angle, if we take in innovation lab, the company would say, well, we're exactly looking at the question of leadership and governance at the intersection of AI and robotics, and how do we innovate in our management frameworks or protocols, or new ways of communication, new ways of interaction with our stakeholders, both internally and externally. Now that we are, foreseeing the integration of robotics and AI more and more in our industry, how can we build that foresight through the lens of innovation? So then we do like innovation sprint workshops with some combination of, we do some research there, we do some upskilling and reskilling quickly, to level up the executives. And then we can develop like internal competitions, or sometimes external competitions to source sort of to outsource sort of ideas and solutions, and to sort of shortlist some people or institutions that they can work with later. So that would be the innovation lab, and an engagement lab. Like a company comes and says, okay, we want to implement new leadership and governance frameworks now at the company, with integrating at the intersection of AI and robotics integration in our processes and our operations, and of course economic modeling. How do we implement this? So that there, like, we come and we have ReTech fellows and senior fellows and advisors and senior consultants. So we come together and we design that workflow and we start working on them. So the strong point is the entry points when we talk about skills, because as we had this conversation together in the both sessions, one red thread that was not mentioned is the gap of skills. Because if you think about capacity building, it's about skill. If you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that, so you completely ignore this type of conversations, then it's obvious where that institution or individual is heading to. But at least knowing what we don't know could help the individual and the institution to at least understand and can even to some extent calculate the risks that they would bear by ignoring what they don't know, but at least knowing that they don't know.
That's right.
At least there can be decision making there. But the idea is that when we upskill and reskill, then we understand what we don't know and we try to understand them better. So we get to know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's where upskilling and reskilling really feeds and nurtures capacity building, resilience, foresight capacity, innovation capacity. So that's why, so the RISE labs, they provide very big sort of platforms for different type of specialization tracks that we cover and many more. Like we connect space to agriculture, at specialization tracks. And these are like programs that executives join us for specialized executive MBA, specialized executive DBA. We have many who have done their EDBA with us and they come back for specialization tracks. So they get a specialization track on the doctoral level. The same, those who have done MBA, they come and add like they upgrade, if you like, their knowledge base and their understanding of the topics by, modularly adding anywhere at these intersections that they find interesting for their career. They're, moving forward. Someone did the MBA 5 years ago, and I said, now, I'm working in, smart city and competitiveness. This is where, I can join and get this sort of post MBA specialized certification track, and the same for DBA. So we have about more than 35 specialization tracks of MBA and DBA. And then at one of these points, we're talking about, what happens when these different enablers, what happens in terms of the community that we're bringing together is that we have a very strong intellectual capacity that is distributed across the globe and across industry. So it's very in line also with the ethos of sort of decentralized autonomous organizations, in the sense that all these fellows and the community members of ReTech Center are driving fascinating projects and initiatives where we talk about at the intersection of digital transformation and the responsible transition. And they all feed back into the system, nurture the system, and benefit from this ecosystem of ReTech Center community. So that's how we try to walk the talk. And for myself, it was a personal passion project that now I have contaminated, of course, the organization first, and then the broader network of our alumni and beyond that. So I'm glad for having this contamination, at least, a very engaging platform for bringing experts to collaboratively drive the transition to the digitally empowered, responsible economy, but also, position ourselves, executives, decision makers, innovators, professionals. It's about positioning yourself in the upcoming market. It's like no competition now. I mean, you don't need to compete with Industry 4.0 because there's an element of the responsible transition that is missing there, and it completely derails the whole system, because if there are no embedded integrity, ethics, human values, and all the elements of the responsible transition, if there is none, how can you survive in the future that will only exist if it's driven responsibly? If it's not driven responsibly, it's okay. I mean, okay in the sense that we don't have many problems to manage because it won't last long.
Right.
I mean, if we don't have responsible leadership of digital transformation, we won't worry for a long time, but we will be forgotten for sure for forever.
Both a powerful call to action and an offer to help. You're covering topics that are very cutting edge, very tomorrow, but also approaching pragmatic, practical business dilemmas that a lot of leaders need to solve today. In all of the various industry vectors and streams that you've covered, are there one or two that you want to particularly call out because either you sense an urgent need in the market and you want to say, here, you need help, we can help you, or are there particular industries you want to focus on for this year and next year?
Thank you. Well, our focus is across all the specialization matrix, but what we receive as in terms of requests for support and let's say in fashion, in health, in space, we are seeing increasingly both the public and private sector sort of interests that are being highlighted, because when we think about, of course, in terms of supply chain, the resilience of supply chain, the integration of AI and robotics, there's the engagement of that comes with tokenization. There's the extended reality technology that would help with the maintenance and supporting of the system, and inclusion in the sense, of course, social inclusion, very strongly in manufacturing. The tension that is there because of the intersection of technology and politics and geoeconomics and socio-cultural aspects of things. These are creating a lot of some sort of panic. You can see institutions and also individuals, they say, okay, how can we get ready for what's coming up next? So this is how we can help. They get here to explore, to develop, to advance, to innovate, to fund, to invest, and to drive with a strong community that is global, what the future holds. That's what we are trying to understand and design together. So that's like enhancing today and enabling the emerging desirable futures that we want to.
Fantastic. You mentioned global, Saman. Would leaders and businesses anywhere in the world be good candidates to reach out to you should they wish to engage?
Sure. So in terms of channels, if you like, the best way, if they want to, stay up to date with the conferences and events, join us in Paris, around the world, that we have some events and different type of activities. We have workshops regularly around the world. So for that, the best way would be to follow Ecole de Ponts Business School on LinkedIn and ReTech Center And if you follow myself, also I write about these things, and I have also I host as well our fellows who join, the senior fellows and experts, and professors who are part of the ReTech community. They join us, so we can also join there. But yeah, the door is open across the Rise Labs, and we hope to engage the right community. I mean, that's the most important thing. We don't need to try too hard, because we only need those who understand, and we don't need many.
I love it.
So,
I love it. It's such a powerful statement to make. This entire conversation, actually, two conversations, blew my mind. Saman, you're so clear and just such a powerful advocate for responsible innovation and so much more. Thank you for your time, and
thank you.
look forward to seeing you in action very, very soon at the next conference.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for those who have listened so far, and special thanks to you also for organizing the second part.
As we wrap up today's discussion on the human conversation on leadership and ethics, it's clear that integrity and ethics are the cornerstone of leadership. Host Kaumadi Gowda thanks you for joining us in this vital dialogue. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and become a part of the community dedicated to ethical leadership. Share your thoughts and continue the conversation with #TheHumanConversationPodcast.